I have always been terrified at even the notion of somebody breaking into my house and potentially threatening my family. It has actually become my biggest fear. I received the word that my house was going to be targeted for a burglary of this particular special night, and I know what I must do. I have to protect the people I love. This is something that I need to face. I sit in the living room, hidden behind the couch, with a pair of scissors in my hand that were being used only yesterday to curl ribbons, waiting for my attacker to come. Suddenly, the lamp on the opposite side of the room flicks on, and the moment is coming. I know it. I spring out into the open, and sure enough, a man looks at me from not 10 feet away. He almost looked guilty, as if I had been caught doing something bad. He was carrying a large sack in his hand and a bulging noticeably. With a maniac cry of fear, I rush to this man. No, this threat. He shouts in his terror, saying something that is incoherent through his large white beard. The blade of the scissors plunges into his stomach. I wrench them out, and blood spears from the wound that I just created. I look into the face of a man I know all too well. Now I understand why my parents were always so insistent that Santa Claus was good and even holy being. Despite my consistent suspicions, fear of this being an impostor and burglar, my own father had been Santa Claus all this time.
It's that time of year again, as everyone knows. Christmas is coming. Everyone is excited, going shopping, hanging out with family, and rushing to get things done for the holiday. I don't know about you, but I relate Christmas to some of my best memories as a child and as an adult. Except for that one time around Christmas that will haunt me till this day. It was just December 8th, and I was at the mall shopping for a relative of mine. While going to a bunch of different stores, I felt an odd feeling. I must have been to at least 4 or 5 stores, and I just couldn't shake this feeling. It was really starting to freak me out and had me on edge to the point where I was looking everywhere around me. Then, I saw her. As I was walking to the next store, I looked to my left, and this short, dark, frizzy-haired woman was staring at me. It didn't seem like she was with anyone, but she was following closely behind a group of people who seemed not to notice her. I then went into a random store just to see what she would do. To my horror, she sat on a bench right outside the store, still staring, and every once in a while looking to her left or right in a twitching manner. I told myself not to freak out and that I was okay because I was in a public place. I thought all I needed to do was lose her. I really didn't want to have to confront her and make it an uncomfortable situation. I left the store I was in and decided to go to the bathroom. I didn't even have to go, I just wanted to see if the woman would be outside when I came out. I stayed in there for a few minutes to make it seem like I was really going, but actually I got out my phone and texted my best friend to say that I might just be freaking out, but that a crazy-looking woman was following me, staring at me, and that I felt a little freaked out. I waited, but no reply. I left the bathroom, and the fucking woman was standing down the hall, peering at me with one eye around the corner. Damn it! I almost jumped out of my skin. I literally froze for a second when I saw this as our eyes met. I kept walking and was able to break stare and went in the opposite direction. I decided to try and lose her. I just needed to think of something. Then I got it. I would go into a bigger store where she would have to go in with me if she wanted to keep an eye on me. I would then hide somewhere and watch for her to come in and wait for my moment. I kept walking down the hallway looking for the perfect store while keeping my eye on the woman, walking on the other side, slightly behind me, and still staring as if she was crazed on drugs. I saw a good store and walked right towards it. It was a huge store with a giant display at the entrance. This was perfect. I used the display to run around so I could get a head start, and then hid behind a wall by the rack of clothes and watch for the woman. It worked. She was looking for me and was going the exact direction I wanted her to go in. Right past me. I took my chance and put the hood up on my hoodie and walked towards the exit. To my surprise, I made it out, but wanted to keep my hood up just in case. At this point, I was ready to end my shopping trip. I'd just have to come back another time. This fucking creepy ass lady was freaking me out. Maybe I shouldn't have let her get to me, or just have told security, but I decided to head out instead. I got into my pickup truck and went home to try and forget this. Fuck, I was so freaked out, so I just jumped in and started heading home. I finally reached my house, pulled up, and parked in the driveway. I was so happy to be home. I felt safe now, and let out a sigh of relief. I finally received a message from my friend who I texted in the bathroom at the mall about the crazed woman following me around. The text read, "Hey, sorry I was busy. Is everything okay? Your text seemed like you might be in trouble." I responded by telling him I was okay and explained to him what happened. We both had a little laugh about it, and that started to distract me from how freaked out I was. I got out of my truck and headed towards the back door to go inside when I noticed the window to the right of the door, which led into the spare bedroom, was open. I walked inside and went straight to the spare bedroom to shut the window. I thought this was a little weird because I don't remember even opening that window, let alone leaving it open. Stuff like that happens though, so I didn't think too much of it. I shut the window and slowly took a look around the room, and everything looked normal. Until I heard it. It was coming from the closet. I didn't keep a lot in there, just clothes and other stuff I didn't have room for anywhere else. I crept towards the closet, letting my imagination get the best of me. I was thinking, what if it was that woman from the mall? However, that didn't stop me from slowly turning the handle and yanking the door open quickly to see what it was. It was my cat. He immediately let out a meow and looked straight up at me. I was relieved it was just him. He runs through my legs to the kitchen and to his water bowl. I told myself I needed to calm down, so I decided this was as good a time as any to start decorating the house, as I would probably have company and wanted to have that Christmas feeling. Entering the kitchen, I noticed my utensil drawer was open, so I walked up to find scissors and tape and then shut it before heading towards the basement. Mind you, it gets dark around 5:30 p.m., and it's now 7 o'clock p.m. I turn on the basement light and head down the stairs. Once down there, I head to the room where I keep all of my holiday decorations. As I'm moving around boxes and trying to find the Christmas decorations, I hear a noise come from another room in the basement. Thinking it was just my cat again, I kept looking for the boxes I needed, until I heard another noise. This one was louder and sounded like something got knocked over. I peek my head out of the room, and I call my cat's name. Thinking he might come running out, I sat there for a few seconds. Nothing happened, so I started walking around calling his name, looking around in the few other rooms that were there. Then I heard it again. Another noise, and this time it was a little faint, but I could tell it came from the back room. The back room door was old and only had a handle on it. The lock was off and the door was slightly ajar. At this moment, I was about shitting myself. I always keep that door shut so my cat won't get in there and get into things or get hurt. Frozen in fear, I walked slowly towards the door. The whole time I'm thinking to myself, I probably just forgot to lock it the last time I was in there. The room is only so big, about as big as a good-sized walk-in closet with shelves on either side, where I store things I don't use anymore. There's a light in there, and the light was off. I grabbed the handle, taking a deep breath, telling myself it's nothing, and just to take a quick look. I opened the door slowly, peering in. I see nothing, or so I thought. I swore in the back I could see a little flicker of some sort, as if something metal was hanging from the ceiling and spinning so the light would catch it. I stand there for a minute, staring into the darkness of the room, trying to make it out. I slowly start to reach for the string to turn the light on, while still focused on the flicker. Then it stopped, and I took my eyes off it to look where my hand was going, and all at once, to my surprise, I heard fast shuffling, a scream, and felt a blow to my midsection. It was that fucking crazed woman from the mall. She had tackled me screaming like a banshee and tried to stab me with a large kitchen knife. While trying to defend myself, racing through my head are thoughts of how the hell she followed me home, got into my house, and hid before I'd seen anything. I snapped into it and went into total fight mode. My life was on the line. I had no idea what this was happening, but I had to do something. Both her wrists in my hand, I flipped her over and got on top of her, keeping an eye on the knife. She's screaming at the top of her lungs and thrashing about to the point I thought she might actually get free and stab or cut me with the knife. The screaming was so loud, I was hoping the cops would eventually show up from a neighbor calling or something. I knew that probably wasn't going to happen. Staying focused, I was able to put my left leg on her arm. Because she wasn't that big, I was able to free my left hand. I grabbed her right hand and was able to shake the knife free and kick it away. Her arm became free while I was doing that, and she got me with a pretty good scratch on my left cheek. This got my adrenaline really going. I now had both her wrists in my hands. Not knowing exactly what to do, having to think quickly, I decided I would stand up, drag her, and put her in the back room and lock it from the outside. This way I could safely wait outside the door and call the police. To my surprise, it worked. However, she kicked me a few times in the gut, almost causing me to lose my grip. Struggling like hell, I was able to get her back in the room, shut the door, and lock it. All the while, she was screaming loudly and knocking stuff over. At this point, I wasn't thinking about my possessions I had in there. I just wanted this psycho woman out of my fucking basement. I got out my phone and dialed 911. While explaining to the dispatcher exactly what was going on, I was leaning against the door because she was now throwing herself into it, and I didn't want her to break the lock and get out. The dispatcher said they would send someone immediately and to stay lean against the door as long as I wasn't in any harm. I told her I could, as long as they sent someone fast. It was only about 5 or 10 minutes before I heard the sirens. The whole time I'm sweating bullets and thinking to myself, how the fuck did this happen? I couldn't think straight with all of her screaming and knocking things over. Before I knew it, I heard my front door fly open, a bunch of footsteps, and someone yelling, "Hello? This is the police. Please let me know where you are." I start yelling, "I'm down here in the basement!" repeatedly until the footsteps head down the basement stairs. I can't explain the relief I felt at that moment. The crazed woman was finally going to be taken out of my house. As the police approached me, I told them she was in the room and that I had to lean against the door in case she broke the lock. The officer who seemed to be in charge nodded and asked me to step aside. I did, and a couple other officers grabbed me and walked me upstairs. I heard the remaining officers downstairs yelling to the woman that they were going to open the door and would use force if they had to. The officer that took me upstairs sat me down in the living room and told me to stay put, and headed back downstairs. I heard the head officer yell, 1, 2, 3! And then the door opened and the screaming from the woman got louder, and I heard the officers yelling for her to get down. I don't know for sure, but I think she may have started to fight with them. It wouldn't surprise me, this woman was obviously out of her mind. While sitting in the living room, I heard them struggling to come upstairs with the woman restrained. They made it up, and the 3 officers had to keep control of her. While they were bringing her up, she gave me this cold and evil stare and spit in my direction. With all that had happened, I didn't even flinch. All I wanted to know was how the hell this even happened. The head officer comes up to me and notices the scratch mark on my face and sends in a medic. I tried telling him I was okay, but he insisted and said she didn't look too clean and could have had something under her nails. While the medic is cleaning me up, he asked if I knew this woman. I told him I didn't and proceeded to tell him about the mall and how she was following me and staring at me. After our conversation, the officer said he had to leave, gave me his card, and said he would be in contact with more information. I thanked him and the other officers and said I would be awaiting their call. Just a few days later, I would get a call from an officer with some details on how the woman did this. I was anxious to hear, so I told him to please tell me everything he knew. He said the woman was in fact on drugs and was a heavy drug addict. He also stated she was already in their system, having had problems in the past, but they hadn't seen her in a while. He said after the woman came down from her high and stopped fighting with them, he was able to get her to explain why she was following me at the mall and how she got into my house. She claimed not to remember much, but had stated she just wandered into the mall to get warm after doing crystal meth. She remembers noticing me walking around alone and thought I'd be the perfect person to rob or follow home, I guess. So, This is how she did everything. When I thought I had lost her, she noticed me walking out of the store I was hiding in and started following me again. She stated that she noticed I noticed her and stayed even farther back this time and behind the crowds of people. Once outside, she stayed a good distance behind me, and when I got into my pickup truck and started to drive, she jumped in the back and ducked. When I was home and parked in the driveway on my cell phone, she peeked in the back window and noticed I wasn't getting out and that I was distracted. She then jumped out, ran into my backyard. Not knowing what to do, she frantically tried the window next to the back door, and because I forgot to lock it, she was able to open it and get in. The officer continued to tell me that once she was inside, she ran into the kitchen, grabbed the knife, and ran to the basement looking for a place to hide and hopefully sleep for the night. That's until she heard me come in, and she ran into the back room, not thinking, or probably not even knowing because of the drugs, that once she was in, she wouldn't be able to fully close the door. She told the officer that she was hoping I wouldn't find her, so she might have a nice warm place to sleep for a day or two. Once I opened the door, she told them at first she wasn't going to do anything because she didn't think I could see her, until she noticed I was going to turn on the light. Then and there, she panicked and tried to kill me, saying it was the drugs that made her do it and the desperation of wanting a place to stay. After telling me this, the officer tells me I have nothing to worry about because she'll be locked up for some time. I still live in the same house and have since moved most of the stuff from that back room into a different room. Every once in a while, though, when I have to go back there to get or store something, I always pause. Thinking back to that day, I could have been killed by a crazed woman who was on drugs and didn't know what she was doing. I'm thankful to be alive, and if I don't have to go in that back room for anything at all, I make it a point now to stay away from it.